thanks. Like, hey, Scoob, did you hear Nikki Blake is hosting a Scooby-Doo panel? No. Yeah. Like on today's Scooby-Doo episode, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy meet Nikki Blake. Yeah, and a Scooby Panel. Like, we need to get this puppy started. Okay, Nikki Blake, take it away, Scooby-Doo.
On today's episode of the Scooby Panel, Nikki, Wendy, Scott, and Tristin remember producer, animator, storyboard artist, and character designer Jerry Eisenberg. So we're here to talk about Jerry, and sadly he passed away on February 11th. From what people were saying was pneumonia. I guess he had been sick for a while, and he died from complications of pneumonia. He died at the age of 87. He had a 69-year career in animation, which is just absolutely incredible. Wendy, Will, and I had the chance to interview him, and he was just hilarious. He had us laughing. He wanted to make sure his interview was the longest interview that we ever did, and I'm pretty sure that it still is.
That sounds about right.
But he was just so great to talk to, and you guys both knew him very well. Can you tell us how you met him and when you worked with him? Scott?
Well, mine has kind of a funny beginning to it. I was going to Cal Arts, and we had a producer from Marvel come out and look at all of our stuff on our producer show. And he's like, we were talking, and he's like, oh yeah, you should come down to the studio sometime. And, it was almost like, it wasn't like an interview, but it was just like, come down and meet us and everything. And I was like, oh, okay. I got all excited. And so I showed up there. The producer that talked to me didn't even see me. They put me off on the guy who was like the art director there, whose name was Takashi. And he was looking at my portfolio. It was just a minute. And he looked at all this stuff. And my stuff had a real Hanna-Barbera flair to it, because that's the way I draw. And so he goes, just a minute, and he went and got Jerry, and he sent Jerry in the room. And Jerry's looking at my stuff and just kind of like looking at me at the top of his eyes. And he wasn't being Jerry, he was being this guy, that I never met. And I was very intimidated because I knew who he was. And he was looking at my stuff, and then I had this scene of animation, and there was this design of this cowboy that his dad had done in a comic book that I saw, and I loved that design so much I decided to animate it. So I did this animation. All my teachers at school were like, oh, that's the best thing you've ever done. You should put that in your portfolio. And I'm like, okay. So when I took it, Jerry picked it up, he looked at it, and he's like, he looked at it, and he could recognize that was his dad's design. Cute cowboy. I'm like, I was like, oh, I think he's put it together. He flips it, and he looks at the exposure sheet, and I put a new one on it because I had the exposure sheet I had was all dog-eared. And he looked at it, and he goes, where's all the markings? I said, well, I just put a new one. Oh, all right. He goes, yeah, well, okay. Well, thanks for coming down. And that was it. Okay. So about a year later, I got hired at Marvel on Muppet Babies, because that's what they were working on. And Jerry was key storyboard guy on the Muppet Babies. I was so intimidated by him. I didn't say one word to him. He was always in the hallways. I'd always see him and stuff, but I knew who he was. And I was thinking, oh my God, if he sees me here, he's going to think, oh, there's that kid that, that was like, ripped off all this stuff. And why is he here? But I didn't even talk to him. And I loved his style and everything he did so much. And if there were ever like three guys from Hanna-Barbera that I ever wanted to draw like, it was Iwo, Willie Ito, and Jerry. That was it. And I modeled. They had an influence on me that I didn't even know until I got older. And I was like, oh, well, and then I figured out who they were. And I'm like, well, I want to draw like that. So that's what I did. And I thought, well, maybe this will get me a job at Hanna-Barbera one of these days. So anyway, finished with Marvel, went to Hanna-Barbera, was there for a year, and I was design supervisor at Hanna-Barbera. And Jane Barbera was taking me around to everybody, and she took me around to Mr. B, and she was like, I said, well, is there anything you want me to do that will help production and speed it up? He goes, yeah, we're bringing Jerry Eisenberg back. Just keep him busy, would you? And I was like, okay. So then that's on Tom and Jerry Kids. That's when I got to know Jerry and to, realize how he was. And he was just, he didn't, what's really weird, and Tristin might agree with me on this one. what was really weird about Jerry is he never really held court, but he was always kind of the center of attention. You know, just because of the way he was and his personality and the jokes he would make and always grabbing for everybody's food at lunch and stuff like that. You know, he was just that way. But then yeah, like so after that, after Tom and Jerry Kids, and then I went to Warner Brothers not long after that and brought Jerry in on Hysteria. And I think he wasn't on Static, was he with us, Tristin? He wasn't on Static. I think he was just on.
I don't think so, no.
I don't know if he did character. Well, maybe. I thought he did. I thought he was on everything we did from Hysteria on up.
Maybe storyboards.
Yeah, he did storyboards. He did storyboards on our DVDs and then on Crypto, Tom and Jerry DVD that we did, and the ones that we worked on, me and you worked on
all the Scoobies.
The first two Scooby, and then What's New Scooby-Doo, he was on that too.
And Tom and Jerry?
Yeah, the Tom and Jerry DVD that we did. He was on that. So but yeah, but I
think you brought him in on everything you could, like
yeah, everything that he was suited for, I definitely had him in on it. And he was so I, you know, probably good portion of my career was around Jerry and Ewo, basically, and that's where I wanted to be. So it was really, really amazing to be able to you know, work with those guys like I did. So but anyway, that's how I met him. And you know, so it was like, you know, whenever I met him in Hanna-Barbera, everything was from Marvel was forgotten because he didn't even remember who I was. So that was fine, you know. But yeah.
That's where I wanted to be too. It seems like all the shows that I grew up with, loving those songs or those scenes or those characters, it was the ones that he did, you know. But yeah, I was lucky enough to meet Jerry through Scott. So I'm forever grateful for you, Scott, for everything that you've done for me in my career, for sure. And yeah, I was on Hysteria and Jerry showed up and just started coming in my office and taking over. I was like, who is this guy? And he just start talking. He just,
was that when you shared the office with Joe Sitka and AJ?
Yeah, with AJ. Yeah, with AJ.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and yeah, he just introduced himself and started talking and hey, what are you working on? And hey, if I can help you with anything, let me know. You know, he's just like the most humble person. And you know, when I found out who he was and what he had worked on, and like, you know, and he was best friends with Ewo, because you know, I had met Ewo when I was a kid, and I was just like, you know, very respectful of Ewo, and I thought like he was really serious, but Ewo totally kept Jerry in line. It's funny how they would banter. Yeah, so we worked on a couple of years of Hysteria, and then on to Scoobies, like all the Scoobies, and I had a cubicle right on the other side of Jerry, and he would draw these pictures of me and making fun of, I don't know, he would just draw me as like weird characters, or like if I was going on a trip, or if I was getting married, if I was, you know, anything that was going on in my life, he would draw like a little funny drawing. And you know, that's what he did. Like he communicated through drawings, you know. It was like that was just his specialty. And so then I would try to draw back and I would throw him over the wall, and he loved it. He loved that.
Did he draw you like a duck a lot sometimes, or?
Yeah, I don't know how that came about, but I think he found that I was irritated by it, so he did it more. And we would just laugh about it, you know. It was like he was never serious, I don't think. Even if it was a serious thing, he was always, you know, there's always so much joy in that man. And, you know, he's just, yeah. So I'm pretty much like all of the projects I worked on with Scott, Jerry was on. So that's how we built our friendship. And so it started in 1997, and then we continued being friends after all these years too. It was kind of an odd group, but it was great. Yeah, we were kind of an unlikely team, but I think they really enjoyed, because I did come from a, animation family. And so I knew their history a little bit, just through their art, through their cartoons. And I was an aspiring artist. And so, I think they just really appreciated that and helped me along the way. And yeah,
Well, I think they respected because of, your dad and everything and the talent that you inherited and everything. And I mean, you were born with that.
Yeah.
So I think they
I worked on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched that happen. Actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Tristin, why don't you try digital painting now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's so cool. It's just how everything worked out.
And the traditional background people got so mad at me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but like it was weird how everything kind of fell into place. I mean, I had gotten a computer from Mike Milo, it had Photoshop on it. I started learning it way before we even knew we would need it.
Yep.
And then when you needed somebody, I was like, and I always was an aspiring background painter. So I think it was meant to be, all the cards lined up. And then also just, the animation world will never be the same. That's for sure.
At Hanna-Barbera, we'd like put people in the recyclable bin and throw them down the hallway and stuff, just play gags on each other.
I think that's how it should be for sure. Yeah. Like it shouldn't be serious. You're making cartoons, right?
There are things hanging on people's walls that probably should never have been there. Correct that you can't get away with nowadays, but back in the day, it was hilarious,
Mm-hmm.
And
anything for a laugh or a gag or an inspiration, something to inspire you.
And that was the thing too about Jerry is like I think a lot of people had a problem with the way he worked because he didn't seem like he was focused. Or he was really doing what he was supposed to be doing. He was always up kind of doing other stuff.
He never seemed like he was busy.
No, but he never missed a deadline, and he always was right on the money what it should have been.
Well, he's known for being fast and cranking out
crazy fast. He used to tell me
drawings.
that they would do layouts all week, and then sometimes if they had extra ones, like an 11-minute cartoon or a 7-minute cartoon, like for when they were doing like Adam Ant, Secret Squirrel, and Peter Potamus and stuff like that. He said he'd take them home on the weekends. He would finish early, like on Thursday, and then take Friday off because he'd be done with everything. And then Bill would come to him and say, "Well, I have some extra ones to do," and he'd take them home over the weekend and do it and give them another one. So they would be that far ahead. So
he had a great work ethic, but
crazy fast, as accurate as you could be, and he knew how to draw that stuff like nobody's business. So yeah.
I read a lot of really great tribute posts to him. And one that kind of stood out to me was Joe Sikta said that he liked to sneak framed photos of himself into people's houses or their offices. Do you know of this? And
I had a picture of him in my cubicle.
I was a victim of it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is we were doing a Scooby, and Simple Plan had done the theme song for it, and they came in to do an episode, and I directed that one, and I brought my daughter in to meet Simple Plan, okay, my oldest daughter, and so she was there for the day, and after we got done, we were going to go out to lunch, but I had to go take care of some stuff. She was in my office, so Jerry comes in with this picture of himself and puts it on my shelf. And he tells my daughter, he's like, don't say anything. And he leaves. I walk in and I'm like, where'd this picture of Jerry come from? And my daughter rolls her eyes. She's like, Jerry Eisenberg. And he got a bigger kick out of that, out of her reaction. Because I went and told him later, he got a bigger kick out of that than he did doing the whole prank of putting the picture in my cubicle or in my office. So yeah, it was fun. But yeah, he did do that. Yeah, and did yours just show up one day too, or was it?
Yeah, it was just on my little bulletin board, and there's that little like black and white.
The one where it's like this, yeah, where it's like he's got the hat.
Yes, that one. Yes.
Yeah. That was his standard, and he had a post-it note on mine. I can't remember what it said. I've still got the picture. I just don't have it out, but I've still got it.
Yeah, and then if you take it down, he's like, "Why'd you take it down?"
Yeah. Ooh, where's my picture?
Yeah. And he drew, I think, like he would draw like a drawing for your sketchbook. He drew a really nice picture of some of his character designs that he's done in the past, and he included a picture of himself in there, of course.
Yeah, so I didn't even do that.
That's always like that too.
If you had to explain Jerry to someone, how would you describe him?
Probably just the happiest person I've ever met, the jolliest, sweetest, most humble. Never, I don't think he had a mean bone in his body, honestly. He was just a big love.
Yeah. He's like a big teddy bear.
Yeah.
You know, and he always like would kind of like fret about stuff that he hadn't done sometimes, you know. I remember when he was telling me how he made deals with, like, when he went to Ruby Spears. I don't think I made the right deal with them. You know, he would kind of lament over that. Or he didn't spend enough time doing this or that or the other thing, or he couldn't really remember stuff that he'd worked on. Sometimes you'd have to prod him, you know, like, well, remember when you did this? And he'd be like, oh, I wish I could remember better, you know, because we would do all these DVD interviews with him about shows that he worked on. And he'd go, I wish I could remember better, you know, and it was like, so he would kind of lament over that kind of stuff. But yeah, he's always just really up, and there's certain things he liked. He had a big African art collection. Right?
Yeah, he was really into collecting African art.
And samurais too, right? Didn't he have samurai swords too?
I don't know about the samurais, but it sounds like it.
Yeah.
He was really into the New Yorker magazine, collecting like old magazines and like just art of that era, you know.
His dad was an amazing artist too. That's where he got the talent from. But his dad used to do the Yogi Bear and Yogi Bear influenced on comic strip for a while, and all kinds of comic books that I grew up on, you know. So
I love that story of him dressing up like Yogi Bear, the Yogi Bear suit, and going to New York
when they were selling the banana splits.
Yes.
They had a thing with the corporate, or with the network, I guess, or the sponsors.
A bunch of men in ties and neckties.
We're going to have this show where we're going to have guys in costumes, and they're going to, you know, bump in and fall around and fall all over each other. And Jerry comes in wearing the Yogi Bear costume that they had at the studio, and then, you know, got in everybody's face and was like, you know, laying on the table,
sitting on their laps.
Sitting on their lap. Yeah. Yep. That's how they sold the show, I guess.
Yeah.
He convinced them, you know.
And he used to say, "Oh, Tristin, you make me nervous." Like he was always like, "Ooh, girls," you know, like he would do this like kind of gay thing.
Yeah, he would. That was one of the shticks that he would do. Yeah. And he was proud of that. You know, he loved doing it. That was hilarious.
Everybody knew about it.
Everybody knew about it. Everybody thought it was hilarious.
Ramon even thought it was funny. She never got mad. I love the way she looked at him, and I love the way that she just loved him, you know, like she just accepted him for his goofiness.
And she, you know, she didn't try to squelch it. She was just like, whatever he wanted to do, she was on board, you know?
Yeah.
And with you two, you guys did the interview with him. I know you only had a short time with him, but what were your impressions of him?
Well, first, before we go off the topic of Ramon, when Nikki and I spoke to Jerry, we filmed like the main panel, and then Will left and Jerry wanted to stay on. So we stayed on with Jerry, and Ramon came out for a lot of it too. And if there's one thing that I will remember about those 4 hours that we spent with them, it was the way that they looked at each other. Yeah. And there was no doubt that she loved him and he loved her, and he'd get a little bit sassy and risque in what he was saying, and then she'd shush him and everything, but there was just nothing but like pure joy and love in that interaction. Like she wasn't upset with him or anything. It was just it was just wonderful. I wrote him a little letter and a card for Ramon a few months after we spoke to them, and Ramon is from Canada. She's from Quebec, which is actually very close to where I am in Ontario. The border's very close. And so we spoke about that. And I really wanted to put like a little maple leaf, like a taste of home kind of thing in the card for her. And when Jerry wrote back, he made a joke about, he's like, well, this is really nice, but like the next time that you send a leaf, you're going to have to make it like a little bit bigger for me. This is a little bit small for me. And I could just imagine Ramon like reading over his shoulder and being like, you can't say that. You can't say that. Oh, you stop it. Stop it. So yeah, really sweet.
Always about Jerry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what? Because of how he could get away with that. And I'm sure that there are some people that, I don't know, don't have a soul that would be bothered by somebody like this, but I don't know how you can be, because if I were going to describe Jerry, and granted, I mean, we didn't know him that long and we didn't know him that well, but because of his personality, it felt like meeting him. I mean, I was very intimidated because I knew who he was, and it's a really big deal, getting to talk to somebody like that, to meet them. And yet it was like someone that I had known before came in the room, and it wasn't uncomfortable. It was easy. It wasn't awkward. It was just like, oh, there you are. Where have you been? That was what it felt like. And if there was ever a human being that could embody the ideal of like a walking ray of sunshine, that's Jerry. That's what Jerry was.
Well, he was a Sagittarius.
Yeah. And he always said that he and I were very compatible.
Well, that's what he said to me.
Yeah, well, because we're Leos.
Yeah.
He's a Leo too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
But if, I'm sure that it's true that some people can like actually see auras, but even if you can't see it, I feel like, especially somebody like Jerry, there's no way that you can't like feel that aura coming off of him, even if you're not there in person. And if seeing them is a thing, I would give almost anything to see what Jerry's would look like, because I feel like it would be the most beautiful and brilliant rainbows and prisms and sparkles, and just like the most impressive, beautiful peacock kind of show.
Well, a lot of that energy comes through in his cartoons. That's why
Absolutely.
we love cartoons.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And I think that guys like Jerry, they're why cartoons from, all of the classics, it's why they're so great, because you can't be that kind of a personality and do work and not put some of that into what you're doing. And of course, whoever is watching it is going to take some of that in. And I think that's why they have such great longevity, because it's not just a cartoon. There's a piece of Jerry in it. There's a piece of Tristin in it. There's a piece of Scott in it. There's a piece of everyone who is of that passion in the work. And Jerry, he was a walking character.
For sure.
I don't know that I've ever met someone better suited for the job that they had than Jerry.
Yeah.
If you just met him and you didn't know what he did, I feel like you'd be like, man, if you're not working in animation, you really should.
I couldn't really see him doing anything else. Okay, what else would he do? He wouldn't be a corporate guy. He wouldn't be.
That's the other thing too. He kind of wanted to please everybody he was working for too a lot, because it would always be like, he would kind of like need to be prompted a little bit more than you would think, because he would look at the stuff that he did and it was just genius. But sometimes he would get like, he wanted to make sure that he was giving you what you wanted, and he was always doing that, there would be things he would come up with too that would just, like, if you just go back and look at some of the stuff that he designed, like Peter Potamus, when you look at that, the very first design for Peter Potamus that they were going to go with, where he had like a necktie and a hat like Yogi Bear almost. And then Jerry all of a sudden decided to put like a pith helmet and the safari jacket on him, and it was like, that was it, But he did he and Ewo, mostly Jerry though, did all the cars for Wacky Races. He did all the planes for Dastardly and Muttley and their flying machines. He did all the cars in Owl Cat and Motor Mouse. He was really funny with the mechanical stuff, just making it like over the
Pure
top.
creativity, yep.
There was always a lot of presentations that I have too when I was in charge of that Hanna-Barbera. I could always tell it was a Jerry thing because he would always do a fat guy with a plunger on his head. And that was like the main thing. That plunger gag, he loved that. He thought that was hilarious because there was like 3 or 4 shows that they did where there were just this big nosed fat guy showed up with a plunger on his head. And then he was always talking about like, well, I always draw characters kind of fat because I'm kind of that way. And I'm like, no, you're not. Just, and he's like, well, yeah, but so, he kind of like, I'm putting myself in my drawings more, so I'm like, well, okay.
Well, I think that stems back from Hanna-Barbera and Ewo. Like I think they used to joke about his size.
Well, yeah, they were, him and Willie were Asian guys, and they weren't like much over 5 feet tall,
Right.
Jerry was like this towering guy to
Big
them.
mountain.
Yeah. So
Iron Mountain.
Yep.
Eisenberg.
Yep.
I remember when we finished the interview after, because like Wendy said, her and I stayed on and we talked to him and Raymond for like at least an hour. I remember my cheeks hurt so bad because for that entire hour, he just had us laughing. And his wife, every so often, she'd be like, you need to let these girls go. They have to go. And he was like, they don't want to go. They want me to stay.
Yeah, they want to hear me talk.
He'd be like, ooh, what do we talk about next? Ooh.
Yeah.
And we did. We genuinely did.
Yeah.
We didn't want to leave either.
Aw.
Yeah. But again, like Wendy said, it was so comfortable talking to him. I was so nervous when we started. I was pacing my hall. I was just like, I can't believe that we're going to talk to Jerry Eisenberg. Like, how is this even happening? And then we sat down, and within 5 minutes, it was like we knew him and we were all friends and we were all just having a good time. And he really made us feel comfortable. And I think we made him feel comfortable. So yeah, it was just so great. It was such an honor to be able to talk to him and spend that time with him. And the fact that he enjoyed it as much as we did was just, it blew our minds. It really did.
What was really funny after that too is like I've seen the whole interview that you guys had and the footage afterwards, and the fact that when Will left and he had 2 girls to himself, that was his thing. He's like, oh well, I don't want you to leave. What are you talking about? And it was just you could just see his eye just lit up. He was so happy that Will was gone and he was happy to himself. So yeah,
It's funny.
I had talked to him on the phone a few times, and it was funny because if he called me, he would be like, Nikki Blake, this is Jerry Eisenberg. Do you know who I am? And I was like, how could I not know who you are?
Yeah.
One of the most famous cartoon or character designers.
Right.
Yeah. And so humble.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just I mean, you get lost in all the stuff that he did or had a hand in doing with, the stuff that became really, really popular. I mean, like I just mentioned, like Wacky Races and Dashley Muttley and stuff like that. And Jabberjaw, he designed Jabberjaw, I think. No, I know he did. And gosh, then Fang Face. We had his whole other career at Ruby Spears in '77 when he went over there. He was like the Ewo of Ruby Spears, where Ewo would like basically oversee everything. Well, Jerry was that at Ruby Spears. So their first show was Fang Face, and then they did Plastic Man and Thundar, and then other stuff that they did, Rickety Rocket, which is kind of, what else did they do?
He had a lot of hand in the Jetsons too. Just
well,
like
yeah, he designed Astro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he designed Astro. That was his. He was really proud of that. So yeah. Amazing stuff. I don't know. It's just like I said. That's just there were only 3 guys, that I wanted to draw like, and he was one of them. And it was really wasn't. It was kind of like I said. It was intimidating in the beginning, but then after you got to know him, it was just like they kind of accepted you, especially if you hung out long enough. They would be kind of like, that wall would come down, and they would be like, "Oh, okay. Well, you know what you're doing." So they give you the respect. So. Yeah.
And you talk about him being really humble. It makes me think of when we were signing off with him, not like just me and Nikki at the very, very end of the call, and how, we really just wanted to tell him over and over again how important he was in our lives and the lives of so many people, and, how much he was loved and how much we appreciated everything that he had done in his career. And he was so humble to, like, he took that in with so much appreciation, but then he also immediately turned it back around to say thank you to us for being fans and for watching and for wanting to talk to him and stuff, you know, and that's, I don't know, that's pretty special. You know, there's a lot of people who are humble about what they do. There's not a lot of people that sort of embodied that the way that he at least came off doing in that short period of time that we knew him. And it's so nice to know that it wasn't just his job. You know, I feel like no matter who we talk to, this is kind of like a staple thing. Like, you know, it wasn't just a job. He lived what he loved. Mm-hmm. He wanted to do that. He put himself into the characters. When we got done talking to him, I watched all of Fangface and I'm like, oh my God, it's Jerry. Fangface is Jerry. It's Jerry, you know?
That's about as close as you can get, you know?
And knowing, it's so strange because like knowing him first and then watching the show, it made the character more special because I imagined it as Jerry, and that sort of like grounded it in some kind of weird reality that just made it all the more better. And it's like the more campy the show was, the more I thought of Jerry and the more that I loved it. And the fact that when we were talking to him, he had done some of those What Are Cartoon Show shorts for Cartoon Network in the 90s. And the one that I mean, it wasn't like, that wasn't my favorite block of cartoons because the style of certain ones was getting like a little bit looser than what I cared for. But Yoink of the Yukon, right? I'm Canadian. There's no way I'm not going to love that. And there were so many just like perfect touches in it that as a Canadian watching it, I'm like, oh my gosh, did a Canadian write this, do this, do all these things? And when I brought that up to him during the panel, he was so excited that I knew what it was.
Oh, yeah.
And then when we learned that Ramon is a Canadian, I'm like, okay, it makes sense now. And the fact that the bear's name was Noof, okay. Anyone north of the border would get a real kick out of that. Right. I think even the people in Newfoundland that we
had to know.
Call it that, Newfies, but you know, it's okay. But it was just, I don't know, the attention to detail in that. And
I wonder how much Ramon had a hand in that, you know?
I was just gonna say, I don't think that I actually asked him that or if he elaborated on it, but you're so right. Like how much of that was actually her or his nod to her, even if she wasn't directly the one involved in it, but like surely he was thinking about her in some capacity when he
was probably the quality control. Yeah.
Exactly. But it was really special. It was a really special time. And
he was really proud of that show.
And as he should have been.
Yeah, and I don't know why that wasn't picked up for a series too, because it seemed like it had it, you know, because that's all what all those cartoons were little pilots for series, and I don't know why they didn't pick up more of them. You know?
Yeah. Although, I mean, sometimes though, I mean, I agree with that, but sometimes I don't have a problem if there's just like this one little perfect encapsulated thing, you know, because sometimes if you do too much of that, it dilutes it. And then it's somehow like not as special, you know, if it gets a second season. It's like a lot of people would have loved another Johnny Quest, another show that Jerry worked on that was amazing. And initially I thought I would love another season of Johnny Quest too, but I'm like, okay, well, I can look at pretty much every other cartoon and I don't know that a second season in anything completely captured the magic of the first season. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm okay with like that series was a 10 out of 10.
Right.
No question. Yoink is a 10 out of 10. If they had done more of it, would I still look at the thing as a whole as a 10 out of 10? Maybe not. And that would be a shame because it's so perfect that I'm like, it's okay that it was just that one thing. I just wish that it was more well known to people and that they knew that it was Jerry that did it, because once you know it's Jerry, you just get so much more out of it when you watch it, because you know that like this was not happenstance. This didn't get to be a 10 out of 10 short just because all of the stars lined up and it was just like, wow, it's magic. It's like, no, someone thought about that before they did it. Someone put a lot into making sure that it was what it needed to be. And like, how can you not appreciate that? Like on an unmeasurable level. Like that's the most wonderful thing if you're a fan of animation or art or anything like that, when you can see the thought process behind what's been done. Scott talks about this a lot, watching artists who do things and being able to see the thought process. Like, okay, well, I wasn't really sure about that thing you were doing, but now that I've seen you do it, I can see why you did it. And it makes all the difference in like what the thing was.
The approach. Yeah.
Yeah. It tells you more about what their idea behind it is. When you look at something, you're like, that's not quite. And then when you see them actually draw it, you're like, oh, well, there is a reason they draw it this way. And it's, they made it theirs,
Yeah.
They're putting everything they have into it, whatever their ability is, So, yeah.
I'm just curious, what is the best advice that Jerry ever gave you guys?
To laugh. Not take anything too seriously. Have fun in life.
Always finish what you're eating because he's going to go.
Don't waste food.
Don't waste food. Because if you're sitting across from him, you don't have a chance. That was one of the main things. Yeah.
And
oh, go ahead.
Oh, just to include everybody and love everybody and just, no judgment there. It's just,
Yeah. Well, like I said, there were a lot of people that you would have lunches with or go out with and whatever, they would hold court and you would be directly, attentive to them. But he was, like I said, he was never that way. He was just a presence that you was there, he's a force of nature, basically. Now, when you go out with Ewo and Mr. B and him, and Carlton, and you're at a really classy restaurant where Mr. B has a table, that didn't stop him either. That was like he would have been, if there were a lampshade or something, he would have put on his head and been dancing on the table. I mean, he was that just. He'd always make fun of because he knew Mr. B since he was a kid.
I think he's the only one that could get away with that.
He is the only one that could get away with that. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah.
Yeah, Ramon wanted Jerry to tell us right near the end of our call. Jerry he'd gone out for lunch with somebody, like an old colleague or something. And when he got to the restaurant, it was like the swinging like saloon door type thing.
Oh, it was Joe.
And then Jerry just like swung the doors open and walked in like, here I am. And to see Ramon do it though and laugh about it was because Jerry looked like just like this much embarrassed that she was telling us that just for like a split second, but to see her do it, and she was so delighted by it. And I can imagine him even as like an old man making his entrance, and like, why not?
Well, I could see where that came from because Joe and I and Jerry, we all went to lunch. I think it was at Ernie's or something in the Valley, and Joe made an entrance. Right. He's like, it was like the Three Amigos, it was from the Three Amigos, and he didn't quite do it right. So Jerry made him do it over. And I think he loved it so much that he probably, he started doing that whenever he could, if they were double doors.
We were talking about, I'll send this to you, Nikki, so you can post it later. I'll just hold it up really quick. We were talking about pictures that Jerry drawn, and I have a sketchbook where I had artists draw, well, people that I worked with or people that I grew up knowing what they could do. It was kind of like a kids' TV was the topic for the sketchbook. And one of my
your favorite shows, right? Like draw your favorite show.
Yeah, draw your favorite show, or if you can't think of a favorite show that you had, I'll tell you what your favorite show was.
Yes.
You did when I was growing up.
You were the designer of that favorite show.
Were the designer. So one of my favorite things that Jerry did was Hair Bear Bunch.
Yeah.
I asked him, I said, can you draw a Hair Bear Bunch picture for me? He goes, well, don't you want Fang Face? I'm like, no, I want Hair Bear Bunch.
That's one of the
well, what do you want him doing? I said, well, just have him on their invisible motorcycle escaping from
yes.
Like 5 or 10 minutes later. That's what I get.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, nice. Didn't see it.
Yeah. Hey, it's on model.
Yeah. Yeah. And then on top of that, though, he couldn't let Joe Barbera outdo him. So okay, I'll show you this first. I had Joe Barbera draw. This is when I was in the hospital. I was pretty sick, and Joe drew this Tom and Jerry for me.
Sorry, I gotta go see Scott. Oh, wow, that's great. I love that drawing.
Jerry, not to be outdone, right across the page did that.
Of course.
Making fun of everything that Joe Barbera didn't do in his drawing.
No lettering, no shading.
Yeah.
Hey, shading. Oh, hey, shading.
Ooh, shading. Ooh, yeah.
Oh.
Thought that was kind of cute. But anyway, so I got that. I got a lot of birthday cards that those guys did for me too. You know. Also have a Tristin original in here too, but I don't know if I'll
Puff the Magic Dragon.
Magic Dragon. All right, real quick. There it is.
Oh, that's great.
Look at that. Wow.
Yep. Anyway, thank you, Tristin.
Nothing to do with Hanna-Barbera, but
I was like, "What's your favorite show?" I was like, I like Puff." I'm like, okay. Do you? Yeah.
I was trying to think of something rare.
I have a Wendy BRYDGE original in here too. I could show you, but
Doesn't belong in there. I still don't know why you want it.
It does. Wendy,
I want to see it.
You're an amazing artist. You definitely belong.
It's from the Greatest Stories of the Bible, or Greatest Adventures of the Bible from Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Which was
beautiful.
like my favorite thing when I was little. And Scott told me, he's like, you can't do Scooby. It has to be something that's not Scooby, but I still snuck Scooby.
You did sneak. That's a Jerry move right there.
Yep.
Nikki knows I'm all about like skirting the rules that I'm given to like do the thing I want to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Every panel we have, I send the topics and she's like, well, I have more than one, but I'm allowed. So
Nikki enables me. What can I say?
It's fine.
Lets me get away with it.
All good. So what are some of your fondest memories of Jerry?
I think for me, when I could bring my kids in so they could meet Jerry, you know, I think going to lunch with him and bringing my little kids, mostly my daughter, and Ramon was there. And then after we did it one time, they would like ask every time, can you bring Sienna? Can you bring Caden? Can Ramon, you know, like Ramon always wanted to be there. Like she's just such a sweetheart. And and it just felt like family, you know, it was just animation family.
Yep. Now mine was the one time, well, not more than one time that I went to that Japanese place with him and Iwo. Iwo was driving.
Oh, that's always a scary thing.
And I was sliding around in the back seat, you know, side to side, and Jerry's like, "You doing okay?" Ooh. I was like, "No, Jerry, I'm not doing okay."
I know, I used to like grip the
Yeah. But yeah, then going to the place, that food was just, it was okay. Some of it was good, but there was some things I'm just like, what am I having?
You know, I think Jerry spent a lot of time in restaurants.
Yeah.
Because I think he made us feel like he just went to lunch with us, but he went to lunch with everybody. It was like he was always in a restaurant with somebody. And he made us feel special, but I think he made everybody feel that way too, you know. Mm-hmm. And I feel like his humility and his joy and everything, that's something that that's how I want to be in life, you know.
Well, he did introduce me to, when we had that, it was Mr. B's birthday. And I put together a film where we did new animation, like to wish Joe Barbera happy birthday. And it's on YouTube if anybody wants to see it. But Fred Silverman was there, and Jerry introduced me to Fred Silverman.
Put the link up for that, because I would love to see that, actually. If you could include it. Include the link.
Oh, for this, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
And he introduced me to Fred Silverman, and I actually told Fred Silverman, I said, "You're more responsible for my childhood than anybody, more than Bill and Joe, more than Ewo, more than anybody, because he was the one that made the decisions on, we're going to do Scooby-Doo, we're going to do
Greenlight it.
we're going to do Josie and the Pussycats, we're going to do all the, Wacky
He
Race."
believed in them. Yeah.
Was the one that put all, even when, even with, I think he's the one that did the stuff like when they went to ABC, like all those shows, and then he actually went later on after the Ruby Spears and stuff, and then when he started Marvel Animation, Fred Silverman developed these two shows one called Pandemonium, and the other one was called Meatballs and Spaghetti. And who did he hire? Jerry. Brought Jerry in. Jerry designed the whole thing, and headed up those shows, and they didn't last very long, but they were, it was like, again, it was more in the lines of stuff that I had grown up on, so I really loved it, so. And again, Jerry designed everything, so yeah. But anyway, he did introduce me to Fred Silverman, which I thought that was kind of cool, at Mr. Beast thing. So that was kind of neat.
Way cool.
Yeah.
And he influenced your drawing style.
Big time. Yeah.
That's probably what you learned.
Yeah. Well, that's like I said, I saw his and Ewo's and Willie's name on everything, and I was like, okay. And then I started putting it together, who had done what, and figured out, and then like I said, when I finally got to the studio, I could, okay, Jerry did this, Ewo did this, Willie did this, and then I could, put it together, and then, to watch both of them, draw and well, even with Ewo going over my stuff and everything and showing me how to do things and making it look like the way I needed to make it look, Jerry, not so much though. I would just watch Jerry and I'm like, okay, I could see his thought process, and that was really important, to kind of get inside his head a little bit to see how he did things. But he made it look pretty effortless, Well, that's the thing too. Didn't you film them drawn at one point, both of them?
I did. I made a little video of I had Jerry drew
Scooby, wasn't it?
Scooby, I think it
was. It Scooby?
I'll have to find the video. I'll send it if I can find it. Yeah. It's I filmed it with one of those first versions of the cell phone that had a camera, that had a camera in it. So it's so low res. I wish I had a higher resolution. So it's kind of hard to see, but it was really cool that they let me do that. And especially Ewo, like I had him do it over. I had him do it twice.
Wow. Okay.
No, he did two different drawings. He did a Fred Flintstone and a Scooby.
Yeah. We did a whole thing when we were doing that first Scooby movie that we worked on, where I went in and I set up 2 cameras and had Ewo go over every character. And this is how I have the footage of that. And, like I said, my nephew wants to re-edit it because we had 2 cameras, but one didn't have sound for some reason. Mm-hmm. So there was one over his shoulder and one beside him. So I found both feeds of it. So we're going to edit the whole thing together and cut
overdub
back.
It.
You can see him talking about it, and then you can cut back and see.
Oh, please do that.
We're going to put it together. It'd take him probably about an hour to edit the thing, but yeah. And it's long. It's like maybe almost a 2-hour thing.
That's cool.
He goes over every character, like all the 5 main characters, and explains it. So yeah.
Wow.
And I'm asking him questions like, well, why'd you do that? It's like real intelligent questions. Why?
But why? But why?
Well, why? Anyway.
So what are your funniest stories with Jerry?
What are what?
Funniest stories with Jerry.
Well, the picture one was pretty hilarious. I don't know. He would just he would do a thing, and he'd do this with Tristin too, I'm sure. Like he'd see you across the hallway and he'd be like, "Ooh, Scott!"
Yeah.
I'm like skipping over to you or whatever, He'd always do that. But that was, that's pretty hilarious. And that was all the time,
Yeah, he would say things that would try to embarrass you, and then you get used to it. So then but if you were at a restaurant or if you were in the studio or something, he's kind of loud. He's boisterous,
He was,
his
very
voice. And he didn't hold back.
Nope.
I think I just loved seeing the way him and Ewo would kind of
Ewo was
banter.
a pretty good straight man, but Jerry would set him up and Ewo would like just take him down real fast. So that was pretty neat. Yeah.
I think just the way he made me feel, just always like happy. Yeah, it was always like I looked forward to going to work so I could see him,
There was one time, like I said, there was his dad was a really amazing artist and he drew the Yogi Bear comic strip. Jerry came in with all these originals of his dad's, of these one panel Yogi Bear things his dad had done for the daily comic strip. And they were drawn on like tissue paper. So he could ink, over the top of them and stuff. And he had like a big stack of them and I was looking at them like, oh, wow, these are great. He goes, and I said, I love your dad's stuff. And I said, it's really nice. He goes, well, take one, pick one. I was like, huh? He's like, oh, no, you can have one. It's okay. I'm like, oh, no, Jerry. I said, no. I said, you need to keep these in your family. I said, these are amazing, and I didn't take one. I purposely did not take one because that's how I felt about stuff like that. And he was kind of hurt that I didn't take one in a way, It's not that I didn't want to. I mean, it was everything I could do to just go, no. I just didn't. I just said, no, you got to keep this. And then, I don't know what he did with them later, but, he was just, yeah. So I had it. But I do, to be honest, I do have one of his dad's Sunday strips that I bought a long time ago at a comic convention for like $60, and I have it framed on my wall.
Really?
So, yeah. But I do have one of those. So maybe that was why I wasn't like real, upset about them. But these were like pencil drawings. I'm like, oh my gosh, so
those are his dad's drawings. Yeah.
I passed that up. But I got a lot of Jerry stuff though. I got a lot of his originals that he did for me personally. So that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, anytime the Grateful Dead would come to town, because he knew I liked it, he would send a clipping, a newspaper clipping. Did you see? And I would get it in the mail and it would be like, did you know that they were coming? Or like, yeah,
I think one of my birthday cards, he drew me like I was going to a Kiss concert or something. And he drew me like Gene Simmons, like hair and everything, and my tongue hanging out. Like, ooh, have a good time, because you guys would always do like birthday things for me.
Mm-hmm.
You'd always like give me something. I'm like, really, and then so you all like put in and give me stuff, and then always make a big card or whatever. So yeah, and on one of the cards he drew that. So
really thoughtful.
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, he was really pretty tuned into people and who they were and what they were about, And he always knew how to kind of like dig into that and kind of, like you said, embarrass you a little bit about how you were.
Oh yeah. He would find that weakness.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of a thing he just picked up on, I guess.
He used to have pictures of like big steaks. Sometimes he would put a big picture of a steak in his cubicle. I'd be like, what is this? He's like, oh, I really like steaks.
Well, he designed a mascot for what was it, Sizzler restaurant back in the day when Sizzler first started.
Really?
Like
Maybe that's what it was.
I know it's online. I know you can find it, but it's like this bull holding a plate of steak with a little hat and horns coming out. And looks like a Jerry Eisenberg drawing. It's got like a little. It's got a shirt on, but it's got like a checkerboard pattern, like a tablecloth sort of on it. And it's really. And I guess they used that for years until they, But they even had like big statues of it out in front of the restaurant, like Big Boy. Yeah. So maybe
I wonder if he got like all the free steaks after that.
Probably that's probably why I like steak so much, because they probably gave him a free ride. Knowing him, there was probably something. Oh, don't pay me, just give me a steak every time I come in. Yep.
I think one of the things that it's kind of I guess a personal fact of Jerry's, I don't know. Remember he donated a kidney to his sister, right?
Sister, yeah.
When she in his 20s or something like that.
Yep. Wow. Yeah, she passed away pretty early on, but he donated a kidney to her. Yeah.
So he lived his life with one kidney, and he loved steak, but it's really, really hard for kidneys to digest steak.
You know what though? He was really. I mean, he would always like people would kind of like about his appearance and stuff, like Evo would always make jokes about how heavy he was, or Mr. B or somebody like that. But he was really health conscious.
He had to be.
Yeah, he was always, going to the doctor for checkups and stuff, and tell me, oh, I gotta go do this. Well, because he was working for me, so he's like, oh, I'll be out this morning because I've got this and this and this. So,
but a few years ago, he had kidney failure and he needed a transplant, and because of his age, wasn't sure he'd ever get that. And because he had been a previous donor, they moved him up on the list, like 6 years, the wait time.
Yeah.
And they found a match and he got a kidney and it saved his life.
Wow. Awesome. I didn't know that. How long ago was that?
Well, it was probably 15 years ago.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But he was on dialysis for a while. He had to go to dialysis treatments and stuff like that for a while. And yeah. So, but it helped him to, extend his life like 20 years or something like that. But he was like a selfless person.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I don't think there were things that he regretted because he would kind of like, kind of dwell on that every once in a while, where he'd have things where like felt the things he didn't do that he should have done sometimes, and he would kind of bring stuff like that up. But there wasn't anything. He loved life, you could tell, so there wasn't anything that he really, I don't think, regretted too much. It just, stuff that kind of maybe plagued him a little bit. We all have that, so.
Well, I thought I would be crying a lot more through this interview, but I've been laughing more than that. So it's nice to remember Jerry, and it makes me smile when I think of him.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah. Thankfully, we have all of the things that he created that we can look back on and remember what he did.
He left quite the legacy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So for some reason, because maybe I want to get through this first, but it was like I keep wanting to post. Everybody been seeing post tributes and stuff, and I haven't done mine yet. And I feel like I want to. That's why I saw yours the other day, and I sent that little picture of us at lunch. I've got a ton of pictures, but I've got like more than one picture like that too, by the way.
I love that one where he looks like he's really like telling me something important, I'm sure he was like just telling me a joke.
I'm having a hard time like finding the words to like, because it's like Ewo. I've got so much history with him. Where do I start? Where do I stop? So it's kind of hard.
When you're ready, it'll come to you.
Yeah, it's just I just don't want to wait too much longer because I want to get it out there before, everybody's like, well, why are you just now doing it?
Yeah. There's a lot of years there.
Yeah, it's like my whole career basically, where I, had run-ins with him in and out, but I mean, the last part of my career was all with him.
It's 30 years plus.
At least, yeah. So, yep, he was always there. And to know he isn't there, that's kind of hard. I had that problem with Evo too, to know that they aren't there anymore. My safety net's, it's gone, And he was kind of that way too. Not as much as Evo, but he was always there, and it could always somebody I could count on to get the job done and get what I needed without having to tell him anything. There's not that. I mean, all you guys were that way on the crew, towards the end there, but so
Jerry was special. He was really special.
Yeah.
Well, he'll certainly always be worth talking about. Like even though Nikki and I didn't know him for very long, and so it in a weird way, it kind of feels like I don't know that I should even be speaking to anything about him, because anyone who has known him for like an extended period of time might be like, what are you talking about? You didn't know this person at all. So you have no right to feel this way. But I have definitely seen a lot of death in my life, both people that I have known and then just around me. And I wasn't expecting for this to like be as hard as it has, like for it to hurt as much as it has. Because honestly, from everyone that I've ever known in my entire life, I don't think that I've ever truly had that feeling of like someone's like turned the lights down.
Mm-hmm.
Like the lights dimmed. And I don't think I've ever had that feeling about anyone who has passed away. But with Jerry, like Nikki and Scott both sent me, like when he passed away, at almost simultaneously, they each messaged me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, okay, well, I mean, he wasn't young. So, I mean, it's not like it was the biggest shock in the world, but it also kind of was, because I'm like, well, no, we were supposed to talk more. He was supposed to come back, and we were supposed to, you know, just more. It's not enough. It can't be this. It can't be done.
He can't be replaced. There's never going to be anyone else like him, you know.
Exactly. And like that's difficult to navigate. And I feel really bad for the people that were actually close to him, because if I feel this way and I barely knew him, how much dimmer is the light for everybody else. But thinking about Jerry the last few days, there's a Twilight Zone quote from the episode A Game of Pool that I want to say it now because it makes me think of Jerry. And I think that it's good to remember that, you know, tell people when you have them how much they mean to you. If you love them, tell them. But it doesn't have to stop there. I mean, yes, please make a point of doing. I'm so grateful that Nikki and I got to actually meet him, and that we're not just speaking after the fact of someone that we only knew in the abstract through what he did. I'm so happy that we had that time to make sure that he knew what he meant to us.
Mm-hmm.
We got to tell him that. But it's also important when there are people in your life that mean that much to you, don't stop talking about them. Just because they pass away doesn't mean that we just forget about them. So this is the Twilight Zone quote. It's from A Game of Pool, and it's Jonathan Winter's character that's speaking. And he says, "Dead? Not really. As long as people talk about you, you don't really die. As long as people speak your name, you continue. The legend doesn't die because the man does." And I think that is a very applicable quote to someone like Jerry, who is very much worthy of remembering him, not just for what he did, but for the person that he was and what he meant to a lot of people. And you can't put a price tag on someone like that. You can't put a price tag on the moments that they spend in your life. And I would not trade those 4 hours with him for anything, because he was so happy. He was so happy at the end. And just to know that someone that made a huge impact on your life when you were a kid, when you get older, your whole life, you don't even necessarily know the people that are having that impact on you, especially in the field of animation, where unfortunately it's a very faceless kind of job. And in that way, it's kind of thankless, because you do all of this work and you put so much of yourself in it. And it's like you walk down the street and you're not going to get recognized the same way that an actor in a movie is, even though the work that you do is so much more important and impacts people on a way deeper level. But I don't know.
I kind of have a feeling Jerry could walk down the street and people would recognize him. He probably told people what he did. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he made a point of it. He didn't want to be forgotten. He left his photo probably every place he went, you know?
Jerry might have walked down the street with like a shirt that said, "I'm Jerry Eisenberg" on it. And then, you know, like a list of everything he worked on down the back.
Yeah.
And he could totally get away with that.
I mean, he seemed to know everybody everywhere he went. So it was like he made sure people knew who he was.
Well, the thing is, too, is like you guys were with him, what, 5 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, something like that? And
a little more than 4 hours, yeah.
And he gave you everything he was. I mean, there was nothing about him that was, you know, everything was transparent. I mean,
that was him.
That was him. Mm-hmm. And you guys fell in love with that in those 5 hours, you know. Yeah. So that's the way he was with everybody, no matter who you were, if he knew you or not. That's the way he was. And he was like, you know, he wasn't, you know, didn't hold back on anything. You know, that was just him. So for you guys to be, that enamored that quickly. That's not unusual with him,
But he had like a real pure heart,
Yeah.
real pure, like sense of humor, everything.
Mark Evanier shared our panel with him, our interview with him in his blog post. And he said, if you just want to get an idea of what Jerry Eisenberg was like, just watch a few minutes of this because it's exactly how he was.
So yeah, you got it all,
Yeah.
I've seen more structured interviews with him where he's a little more, withholds a little bit more because it's a little more formal. But with you guys, he was just himself, That was the only time I think I've watched a lot of interviews with him, and that was the only time I ever saw him be Jerry, or the Jerry that I know anyway, So, yeah. So you were lucky, not lucky, but that's the way all of his interviews should have gone. But he was always kind of formal on some of the other ones. So yeah.
I'm happy he wasn't formal and he was being himself.
Yeah.
Because that's really what we want. We want you guys to be you. We want people to know you, to see how you are. So
yeah. Well, it's the whole point of it's about appreciating you. It's not a job interview. It's not, it's not something that you do for views or money or anything like that. It's like, if we tell you that you mean something to us and that we love you and that we appreciate what you've done, that is from so deep in our heart, because Scooby and all of the other classic cartoons, life is rough. And that's the reality for everyone. Life is rough. It's rough when you're little and it's rough when you get older. And animation is often what kids have to turn to. There's a story, I wish I had looked it up before we sat down to talk, but there's a story in Joe Barbera's autobiography, from Flatbush to Bedrock in a little under a century. I'm not sure what it's called, something like that. But there's a story that he told in there of these, I don't know if there was a brother and sister, but these two little kids, and they got brought into the studio and something bad had happened to them. I'm not sure if they had come out of an abused home or what. I don't remember, but they were like traumatized and they wouldn't talk to anybody. And they were just like very, down. And he put them in a room with the Tom and Jerry cartoon on, and it made all the difference in the world for them, and they were able to go and that gave them some kind of an escape. It gave them some type of comfort in a situation where there was none to be found for them. And that story stuck with me. And I think of every one of you who worked on something that we've enjoyed, and how kids that had it a lot worse than just, I had a normal childhood. Anything bad that happened to me, it's just regular stuff. It's not bad. But how many of those kids had something really bad, and they needed some kind of escape. They needed something to just hold on to that was positive, where you can sit down for like that 22 minutes and there's nothing bad that you're going to see. There's nothing that's going to make you feel terrible.
You're going to laugh.
You're going to laugh. Exactly. It's going to bring you joy. And for those 22 minutes, you're going to forget, or at least put out of your mind for a moment, whatever that bad thing is.
Mm-hmm.
All of those cartoons and everything that Jerry did are so full of passion, and they're so evergreen that even as an adult, we can still go to that place and get that thing from it.
Mm-hmm.
That is, no one will ever convince me that that's not magic and that that's not important. And you can't put a price tag on that. So for all of the Jerry Eisenbergs out there, that's why you put so much into what you do. That's why that is an important thing. It can't just be your job. Like, yes, you need the money, you want the money. I understand that, and that's valid. But when you put more into it, you give so much more back to everyone else too. And that's
what it's about. Yeah.
It should be what it's about. And it was so clear that that's what it was for Jerry. Jerry was like the walking poster for that. And I knew that in just a couple of hours of being around him. And I'm like, my goodness, I hope that there is some like VIP seat in heaven waiting for you, because my goodness, life would be so much less for so many people if Jerry had never been in it.
Right. That's how I feel. It's a big loss, you know, for humanity. I feel like it did get a little dimmer without him.
Yeah. But we can still celebrate the fact that we had him for that time, and he left us with all of these wonderful things and all of these wonderful memories, and we should tell people that so that we don't forget him, you know. And I don't think he would want people to be too sad. I think he would make a joke at an inopportune time to break the awkward silence, you know. I mean, I think that's what he would do. And so I would love to know, if you could sit down with Jerry for just 5 more minutes, if you had just 5 more minutes with Jerry, what would you say to him? Or what would you want him to know?
Thank you. You know, thank you.
You know, he was a big influence on me too. Either that or I just like push my plate over to him and say,
here, you can have some.
Go for it. I'm done.
You know what? All those times that I didn't let you eat my...
There you go.
You can have it.
Yep.
No, he's...
Yeah. But that's what we appreciate about you guys too, is like, you know, we're kind of the unsung heroes, and you guys actually make a point to say, you know, you guys, what you did had an influence or an impact on what, you know, our growing up and stuff. And when you're in the trenches doing it, you don't realize that. You really, I mean, not that you didn't go through that as a kid, because there were people that I looked up to as a kid, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen, not knowing, even in a really younger place, not knowing why, but just knowing what kind of effect it was having on me. But then as I got older, and then to have people, well, don't get it so much anymore, but to have people come up and go, oh, wow, you worked on that? I'm like, yeah. And you don't really think about it that way, because you're, again, you know, we were in the trenches and not really looking up a whole lot.
Get deadlines.
Yeah, you didn't have a whole lot of time to look up, you know, and really appreciate what you were doing. You just need to get it done and get it out there and hope for the best. You know, and hopefully somebody will like it and buy it, and then we can do another one, you know. But yeah. But that's the way, you know, you guys make us feel. So that's, you know, and Jerry's he's at the top of the heap with that, you know, because, you know, there's not a lot of guys like that, you know, that come along like that and really are really passionate about what they do. And it came so easy to them too. That's what the thing that used to make me crazy about him and Ewo. It's just, they never fought with the drawing. Sometimes they would start it and go, and throw it away, but then they just go back to it because it's like they didn't want to take the time to erase it. It was just like, you know, that's the only time I ever saw them like stumble. I was like, wait, you know, and then they would just do exactly like, and then when they would go, you know, left when I thought they were going to go right with the line or something, and you're like, wait, how did that happen? You know, and it was exactly where it should have been.
Well, you as their supervisor, how was it for you directing them? What do you tell them? What do you say?
No, that Jeralds didn't tell anybody anything. No. I didn't have that right. It's like, really? Okay, yeah, sure, we'll go with that. That's perfect. You know?
Yeah.
Didn't change on one iota of anything. No, there were times where I would want to get certain things out of them that I knew that they had done and I knew that they could do. It's just that little time had passed and they hadn't really been doing that on a regular basis. So when we were doing crypto, for example, and I wanted that, I was so adamant about that Frankenstein Jr. Impossibles look, you know, like you just got to look like that cartoon or I'm not going to be happy. Trying to get those guys to, well, Jerry drew more like that than Ewo did. Ewo kind of like evolved into a little more illustrative, you know, than that shortcut angular thing that he used to do with the everything, you know, where it needed to be with the big heads and, you know, like Gazoo looking stuff. But Jerry I never had a problem with. You know, I had him do, there was one character we did called Stretcho Mutt in crypto, and I had him do the first storyboard of that. And he just didn't even, I didn't have to do one thing.
Just let him go and
let him go, you know. And it was perfect, you know, exactly what it should have been. But yeah, every once in a while with those guys, you'd have to kind of like bring them back into okay, I know you've done this at one point. This is what I love. This is what I grew up with. This is what my inspiration was. And this is my, everything I loved about what you did. And I know it's still in there. Just do it for me. And it was sometimes it's a little like pulling teeth, but yeah, I got it. I got it pretty much, because I just have to remind him. And that's the thing too, like whenever we would have interviews and Jerry couldn't like remember, you kind of have to prompt him a little bit, and say, well, yeah, but when this happened in 19 whatever, blah blah blah. And he goes, oh, ooh, yeah, and then he go on and tell the story, but you'd have to kind of, jog the memory a little bit,
Yeah, I know that they appreciated you though for keeping them,
well, yeah,
keeping them, remembering,
yeah,
keeping them fresh.
Well, it's because again, it's like that was the impact that they had on me, so and I knew it was there.
It's magic when it happens.
Nope.
Are there anything else that you want us to know about Jerry before we go? Because you guys have hung out with us for an hour and a half, and we really appreciate all the information and stories about Jerry. But anything else that you want us to know?
Well, I think he has like 4 grandkids, right? Derek has 3 or 4 grandkids.
Yeah.
Are so lucky.
I haven't seen Derek in so long, so I didn't know if he, last time I saw him, I think he was either engaged or had a girlfriend or something. Saw him at Ewo's. Remember when we went to Ewo's? Reception after his funeral.
Yeah.
That's the last time I saw Derek. So, yeah.
Yeah. I remember talking to Ramon and Jerry about they kept one grandkid after another grandkid, and it was really keeping them busy the last few years. But I just, I think about their loss, and like how I wish they had more time with him too, because they're little. I just want his family to know how much we love Jerry and how special he is.
Yeah.
I know they know that, but thank you for sharing him with us.
Yeah. He would have done that anyway, though, whether they said they didn't want him to be shared or not.
There's enough for me to go around.
No, there's a lot more than enough of Jerry to go around for sometimes. Yeah. Yep.
I know we're just honored to have been able to spend a very short amount of time with him. And like I said, Mark Evanier saying that he was himself, like, to me, that really just means a lot.
Yeah, you guys had the most accurate version of him that I've ever seen on any recorded stuff with him at all. He was just so himself, and it was good to see that.
Yeah. And he's just funny. Like I said, our cheeks hurt so bad after we were done with him. He just had us cracking up for so long. And you could see he loved life, and he shared that with everyone that he came in contact with. And it was great. I feel very lucky that we got to talk to him about his career and his life and see how he interacted with Raymond. And it was a true honor for us.
Yeah. And definitely, I hope that, if nothing else, I hope that when he walked away from that he knew that our love for him was genuine, even though he didn't know us. We were just strangers, but I hope that he went away knowing that he was important. And I know that all of you made him feel important all of the time too. Otherwise, he wouldn't have acted that way around you, I don't think.
Well, Scott introduced you, and he looked up to Scott too. So he respected Scott a lot. So if Scott says you're good, then you're good.
Yeah. Okay, so I got that going for me. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you for all that you guys do for
seriously. Yep.
For the animation industry and telling our stories and letting us tell our stories.
More important than we really are.
Yeah.
Well, I was one of those kids that went through a lot of stuff, and I kind of clung on to Scooby, and he's been what I go to whenever I have issues. And so yeah, you guys made a huge impact on my life. And to me, it was just very important that people know who you are. Like, they see your name at the end of, in the credits, but no one knows who you are. So I needed people to just know who you are, so that, I've gotten a lot of people make comments on birthday posts or whatever, and they're like, oh, their work was really important to me, or their voice acting really gets me through tough times, whatever the case is. But knowing that other people have struggled the way that I have, and that they can see who you are, they can say, oh, this person helped me in my life too. It's just important. You guys need to be known. You shouldn't just be in the background. You shouldn't just be a name in the credits. Everyone should know who you are.
That's really sweet.
Oh, thank you.
I'm really glad that you were able to find, some peace through our cartoons.
Yeah. We are very happy that you guys came here and talked to us about Jerry. And he will definitely be missed. And his passing is a huge shock to the animation community, as we've seen everyone doing tributes. But he will forever live on in cartoons and through posts that we make, and we will make sure that his legacy forever lives on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And much love going out to Ramon and all of Jerry's family.
Yeah.
Because you're all
Our
very
hearts.
special too.
Yeah, our hearts are with you.
Yep.
Yeah. Because I don't know that I'm sure that all of the people in Jerry's life helped to make him that ray of sunshine that he was too. And like we started out with, his love for Ramon was very, very obvious, and our hearts go out to her. But one final thought for Jerry, because Jerry, we know that you're listening. This was all for you. All of it, every second of it was for you. And we hope that you still know how much you're loved, and that's never going to stop.
if you gotta go, let me know. I'm,
He has to
Are we
come and
keeping you from your supper? Have you had your supper yet?
not yet.
You, yeah,
Oh my
you should
goodness.
probably go and
Yes.
eat. And
Yes.
Okay.
is my
Thank
dinner
you.
gonna
Thank
be
you for
some-
lending him to us.
yes, we appreciate you allowing him to spend time with
Anytime.
us.
Well, listen, if nobody else wants to interview with you, you can interview me some more if you
Oh,
want.
gee.
Oh, absolutely. Bye-bye.
But that's good
Definitely.
if you interview Joe Sikta.
All right. I will
Joe,
contact him and
you interviewed Joe Sikta?
Not yet.
not yet.
Not yet.
Oh,
Not yet.
Did you tell them what he did in the restaurant the other day?
No, I didn't. He made
I
a
saw
great-
that. I saw he posted a picture that you and Tristan and him met for lunch.
Yeah, well, he made a great entrance. We're sitting in the in the bench, in the little booth, and he came a little later. So, and the restaurant had two big doors that
Had those
opened,
saloon
swing,
doors.
something like that.
Uh-huh.
But he came in and he made a big entrance. He opened this up, and
It was terrific.
so funny. It was so great.
We're gonna have to recreate that and
It
film
was
it.
so good. He's a nice guy. He's a real nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe Tristan might be a good interview too.
Tristan.
We did talk to her.
We did talk to Tristan
Oh, good.
Oh,
too.
you did?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
she's
She was
a nice
wonderful.
girl. She's a young girl,
Yeah.
younger than our son. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
We're better than-
Gonna let you go then.
All right, Jerry, thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
We really enjoyed talking
Thank
to
you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for making our lives better.
Yeah.
Not just when we were kids, but now and when we're your age, I guarantee Nikki and I will still be loving on Scooby-Doo, and we will think back to this moment and say, wow, thank you, Jerry, for giving us
Terrific.
like the best life ever.
Thank you both for being such fans, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Too bad. Some of the people we talked about, I wish they were still with us,
Yeah.
I'm sure they really enjoy talking with you two and hearing what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
All right.
Okay, Jerry.
What's
Take
a
care.
cartoon goodbye? Not yabba dabba do. That's like a hello.
That's all, folks.
Ibbity, ibbity, that's all, folks.
Thank you for tuning in to another Scooby panel. I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. If you like these panels, please subscribe to my channel for more great discussions. A huge shout out to our patrons, Julie Rosen, Ross from ScoobyFan.net, Tagus, Garrett Spencer, Paul the Scooby Dude, Jesse, and Brendan. If you would like to support the Scooby panel, please go to patreon.com/ScoobyAddicts. A very special thank you to artist, blogger, and Scooby collector Wendy BRYDGE, Emmy-winning animation producer, director, and comic book artist Scott Jeralds, and background painter Tristan Cole. Scooby Panel is available in podcast form on most podcast platforms or as a web series on YouTube. You can find Scooby Panel on Instagram, Facebook, and X as @ScoobyPanel. We are part of the Collector's Maze Network, where you can find all things geek. Scooby and Shaggy were voiced by Scott Innes. Check out Scott's website, onescottshop.com. Scooby Addicts artwork by Will Davenport. Scooby Panel logo by Garrett Spencer. Video editing by Nikki Blake. Music composed and performed by Bovine Nightmares. Please join us next time for another Scooby Panel.